This is a Facebook Live that I really looked forward to doing once I saw this morning's New York Times. You know, there was a very interesting sort of semi-debate last night where both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump appeared before a national security panel and had an audience of veterans and pretty lively. Trump apparently won the toss and decided to go second, which I think is pretty clever. That's what I would have done. Hillary had to go first. Matt Lauer was the host and asked the first set of questions and then tossed it over to the audience. Now, if you have any doubt about who won last night, you should read the page 15 New York Times story this morning about how angry the media is at Matt Lauer. Anyway, say to yourself, what? Well, Matt Lauer's a nice guy. He does a great job on morning television. He's a very good host. Why would the media be mad at Matt Lauer? Well, the hint is, of course, that must mean that Donald Trump won last night. And since Donald Trump on national security was supposed to lose to the former Secretary of State, something had to happen, and it can't have been Hillary's fault. So it's Matt Lauer's fault. Now, in fact, if you actually watch the interaction, Hillary's pretty pathetic. Lauer starts with what you would think is like the most obvious question, which is about her emails and national security. She seems almost surprised that he raised it. She gives a pat, somewhat dishonest answer. When it's time for the audience, a member of the military gets up and says, I've handled secrets in my career, and I am appalled by the way you mishandled secrets. And he then actually used the word corrupt. He said, you have corrupted the national security process. She then gave an answer which was just plain a lie. And she said, oh, nothing that was secret was ever sent by her emails. And not only do we have the FBI saying that there were over 100 that were top secret, and several of which were so secret that they would have been code word, but in addition, in her interview with the FBI, she admitted that she didn't quite know what the letter C meant. And of course, letter C in U.S. government documents means classified. So here's a person who'd been First Lady, U.S. Senator for 8 years, Secretary of State, and she's telling us she didn't know what classified meant if it was the letter C. Now, Trump came on, and of course, Trump's style is just totally different. Hillary is controlled, disciplined, studious, has memorized all of her answers. When you ask question number 204, she brings up answer number 204. It's all pre-programmed. Trump is wild, aggressive, hard to control. And it's fair to say that I think Lauer did have a little bit of difficulty just realizing that, dealing with Trump is not like dealing with anybody else. But what's fascinating to me is when it was over, I happened to be with Laura Ingraham, the radio host, and she said, it's pretty clear that Hillary had a bad night. And it's pretty clear that Trump had a pretty good night. I shrugged, thought that was interesting. But this morning, when I arrived at the green room to get ready to do Fox and Friends, and I picked up the New York Times, and on page 1 it said, inside on page 15, Matt Lauer taking severe criticism for the way he handled the debate. I had to go look at it. It's a whole bottom of the page is this long article in which all these various people pile on, including somebody who said that he was sexist. Now, let's get clear. You can't run for President of the United States and every time somebody pushes you around, say that it's sexist. The fact is Hillary Clinton is a candidate for president. She has to be expected to be pushed pretty hard. Donald Trump gets pushed pretty hard. It told you how close to being unhinged some elements of the media are getting. It's worth your reading. If you want a clear example of media bias, take a look at the debate last night at Hillary's 30 minutes, which she did handle very badly, Trump's 30 minutes, which he handled fine. It wasn't brilliant. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't, going to win an Academy Award for Best Debate, but it was fine. But what made it really a big contrast was how bad Hillary had done in the zone everybody assumed would in fact be Hillary's, not Trump's. Now, there are also these weird things that show up. I mean, Hillary just seems to be surrounded by weird things. Dale Dacey writes in, do you have any comment on Hillary wearing an earpiece during last night's forum? And I'm told that about 2/3 of the questions we've gotten so far are on her earpiece. I haven't a clue. Could be a hearing aid. Could be a clever device so she can be coached during the debate. I'll tell you, as somebody who's done a lot of debating, if I had somebody talking in my ear when I was trying to debate, I'd go nuts. So who knows? I suspect there are enough people commenting on Twitter and Facebook that she'll have to explain it. I didn't see it, but I was told, Calista told me that she saw Hillary's press conference this morning in front of her airplane, in which for 15 minutes she angrily attacked Trump. I think that told you that she thinks she lost. And it has to be doubly frustrating for Hillary because she's losing to Trump in the one area everybody thought was her specialty. She spent 4 years as Secretary of State. She thought Trump didn't know anything. He gave a very good speech, which I recommend to all of you, yesterday on rebuilding the American military. It's quite impressive. So it's fascinating to see what's going on and how it's developing. Now, I had another question here. Maria Ferrer says, what do you think about social media ganging up on Matt Lauer? Well, it's exactly what we're talking about. Maria, I'm glad you raised it too. I don't get it. I think part of what's going on is that the Clinton allies in the media are sending a signal to the moderators for the upcoming debates that they'd better not be neutral. That if they're not anti-Trump and pro-Clinton, they're going to get beaten up by their peers and their colleagues because the ground rule is that Hillary's supposed to win. And if Hillary, in fact, starts losing, then it looks like you're going to see the moderator get attacked because, after all, it can't be Hillary's fault that she was so incompetent last night. It can't be Hillary's fault that she doesn't have a rational answer for her emails. It can't be Hillary's fault that she can't explain her position on Syria or her position on Iraq. Therefore, it has to be somebody's fault, and that means the moderator is going to take the hit. Jeff Winchell. Will Matt Lauer be an indication of how the moderators of the debate will act? Well, candidly, if the moderators for the debates are as balanced and as reasonable as Lauer was, that will be a miracle. Almost always in these presidential debates, the media is biased in favor of the Democrat. The media is, after all, overwhelmingly liberal. And their tendency is to push the conservative harder. Their tendency is to ask questions that are inherently anti-conservative. Not necessarily because they're biased, but because their whole belief system is so left-wing that what seems to them to be fair is pretty far to the left and pretty biased against Republicans. So Lauer actually was, last night, surprisingly balanced. I really thought, when I first read about this, that it was a real risk for Trump to go do it, because I thought it would be potentially, even though I like Matt Lauer personally, and every time I've been interviewed by him, he's been a very nice man. I still thought they're going to be pretty tough and it's going to be one-sided. And so I was very pleasantly surprised by how really balanced Matt Lauer was. And of course, you're now seeing in social media, Matt's paying the price for being balanced. Now, Christopher Bennett, why would Matt protect Hillary on the veteran who asked the question that the VA is fine where it is? I didn't think he protected her. I think at times he said there wasn't much time left. I think he was very concerned about time. And I think that he wanted to go on and ask a different question. But I don't see that as an evidence he was trying to protect her. In fact, as you know, he's being attacked for the opposite. John LaFollette, what do you think Donald could have done better, if anything? I think on some of his questions, he still has to sort out a little bit. He has to explain a little better how he feels about generals, for example, where I think he was a little bit tiptoeing on the edge. He's going to have I think sooner or later a clearer statement about Putin, particularly with the Russians playing games. Like yesterday, we had a Russian fighter playing apparently within 10 or 15 feet of an American aircraft over the Black Sea. But overall, I think he won the debate. I think his speech yesterday during the day was extraordinarily good. It really laid out in a very specific way how many Army brigades, how many Marine battalions, how many new aircraft for the Air Force, how many new ships for the Navy. Pretty sophisticated, compelling speech for somebody who the media kept telling us really couldn't handle this stuff. Janine Tomaselli, what do you think about the comments about Putin and the military, and is the military split about Trump? Well, first of all, the military, I hope, is going to serve the next commander-in-chief, whether it's Hillary Clinton or it is Donald Trump. We're in real trouble as a country if we start to have a military which decides who it's going to support in terms of obeying the law, obeying orders, and executing the command of the commander-in-chief, whoever that person is. It's pretty clear from polling of retirees and veterans that Trump has a substantial margin in his advantage from people who have served in the military and are now either retired or served briefly. So Trump has probably some advantage in the military. On the other hand, a lot of the senior officers were promoted by Clinton. They're not necessarily opposed. Were promoted by Obama. They're not necessarily opposed to Obama. And in that sense, I think the officer corps at the very top has probably been more compatible with President Obama, which in part is what you expect after 8 years of a presidency. The commander-in-chief is going to try to shape the military in the direction they believe in. That's why we elect them to be commander-in-chief. Obama clearly was moving towards a weaker America, a smaller American military, a less capable American military. Hillary will presumably continue in that direction. And what we have with Donald Trump is the opposite move. He's moving towards a stronger, much more powerful, much more capable American military. And he outlined that in his speech yesterday. Tammy Williams says, I see Clinton as a detail person and Trump as a big picture, big ideas person. Would Trump benefit by expressing a bit more detail on most subjects? Would undecided voters be swayed? I think that's a really good question. I think he does express more and more detail. He's learning. This is a guy, remember, Hillary Clinton has been actively involved in politics since the late 60s and early 70s. Donald Trump has been a candidate since June of last year. So he's still learning a tremendous amount. And if you watch him, he is more detailed today than he was 6 months ago. He knows more than he did 6 months ago. And he continues to grow and he continues to learn. I think when appropriate, it helps to use details as a way of illustrating larger, bigger principles. But I don't think that he should go out of his way to try to prove he's learned details. Because I think, frankly, the average American doesn't care. And the average American does not expect the president to be an encyclopedia. They expect the president to use good judgment, to have courage, and to have thought through what they wanted to get done, and then to hire a lot of experts who would know a lot of details. Pat Estwin, we keep hearing how Trump has no experience, but what experience did Obama have? Well, that's a really, really good point, and the truth is, Donald Trump, who has built buildings, for example, in Dubai, in Panama, has a property in Scotland, has operated all around the world. I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump has vastly more experience in the world than Barack Obama did when he was elected president. And Obama had been a state legislator, a part-time college teacher, and a U.S. senator for 4 years when he got sworn in. By contrast, Donald Trump has spent years making tough decisions and forcing them into success over and over and over, and the scale of and depth of his experience is dramatically greater than was for Barack Obama. John Smith. Hillary seemed to have a strategy of filibustering her time to limit the amount of questions she faced. I think that's probably right. I think partly because they wanted to minimize the chance to ask really embarrassing questions. But I also think partly because it's her nature. As I said earlier, she studies all this stuff and she memorizes it and she practices it. And then she has a chance to feed it back to us. And she's almost in lockstep. If you ask her question 17, she gives you answer 17. So you could do that 5 days a week, and you ask 17, she'll give you answer 17. It does make her look more mechanical, less authentic, less spontaneous. So there's a real trade-off for her style. Finally, Danelle Serentine, do you feel like social media has opened up the eyes of Americans? I think the ability of Americans with talk radio, with Google, with Facebook, with Twitter, to communicate with each other, to learn from each other, no question in my mind that we have more sophisticated voters today than ever, that we have more people who know what they're doing than ever before, and that it's pretty remarkable. So anyway, I thought it was just too much fun to report to it. As you know, we do 2 weekly newsletters that are free at gingrichproductions.com. Feel free to go to gingrichproductions.com and sign up if you'd like to get them. And we're going to continue to talk about ideas and continue to bring things to your attention as we see them. And I look forward to, in the very near future, having another Facebook Live.